Max Christie is special. Max Christie's been straight up thriving since landing in Dallas. 6 games in, and he's already putting up 17 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal a night. Those aren't just decent numbers, they're eye-opening, especially when you realize how efficient he's been, shooting nearly 50% from the field, 45% from deep, and over 80% from the free throw line is no joke. That's the kind of efficiency you expect from a seasoned veteran, not a 22-year-old still carving out his role. Dallas wasted no time recognizing what they've got in him. Jason Kidd isn't just throwing him out there for spot minutes. He's trusting him with the ball in his hands when it matters most. That says everything about how quickly Christie's making an impression. You don't just get handed those kinds of late game opportunities unless you've earned them. Kidd even said it himself. Christie understands how to make the right plays, and he's proving it every time he steps on the court. The difference between his time with the Lakers and what he's doing now is unreal. He played over 150 games in Los Angeles and only had 7 performances where he hit at least 15 points. In just 6 games with the Mavericks, he's already matched that. That's not normal. That's not just a player finding his rhythm, that's a player who was being held back. It's crazy how quickly he's flipped the narrative on what he can be. And this isn't some random hot streak. People who've been paying attention saw glimpses of this coming. Back in his sophomore summer league, he was putting up over 20 a game and flashing all kinds of off-the-dribble moves. That kind of offensive skill set doesn't just disappear, it was just waiting for the right situation. Now he's finally getting real NBA minutes in real NBA moments and proving he can deliver when it matters. That is what separates a guy who's just promising from a guy who actually belongs. And let's not forget, he's only 22. Most players at this age are still struggling to find their footing, figuring out how to fit into a system, and dealing with inconsistent minutes. Christie has stepped into a new situation on a winning team and immediately looked like he belongs. That is rare. And what makes it even crazier is that he's doing all this while playing in meaningful games, not just padding stats on a bad team. That makes a huge difference. The Lakers might have thought they were just moving a young role player, but if Christie keeps this up, they are absolutely going to regret it. It's one thing to trade a guy with potential. It's another thing to trade a guy who immediately starts producing at a high level the second he gets the right opportunity. And that's exactly what's happening here. And this is just the beginning. The Mavericks are already rolling. And when Anthony Davis gets back, they're going to be even more dangerous. Christie has already shown he can step up, handle pressure, knock down shots, and make the right decisions. Give him more time, more chemistry with this roster, and the confidence to keep attacking. And this could end up being one of the biggest steals of the entire season. And the thing is, Christie gets even better when you check out the advanced numbers. Let's start with his scoring numbers. He's putting up 9.5 points per game, which already puts him ahead of 63% of players. That alone is solid. But when you break down the efficiency behind those numbers, it gets even crazier. He's not just scoring. He's scoring at an elite rate without needing a ton of shots. That's the definition of a valuable offensive player. His effective field goal percentage is sitting at 55.7. That means he's scoring at a higher rate per shot attempt than over 67% of the entire league. And here's the thing, effective field goal percentage isn't just a basic shooting stat. It adjusts for 3-pointers being worth more than 2s, which makes it one of the best ways to measure how well a player is actually scoring. And Christie, he's way above average. By the way, if you guys enjoy these deep dives, I'll be posting every day during the season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Christie. Then there's his true shooting percentage, 60.5. That number alone puts him ahead of 77% of all players. True shooting takes free throws and 3-pointers into account, which means this stat shows the full picture of his efficiency. And that full picture, it looks really, really good. Christie's not just making shots. He's maximizing every single possession. He's averaging 1.2 points per scoring attempt, which is elite. That means every time he takes a shot, the expected outcome is better than what most players in the league are producing. And let's talk about how he's getting those points. He's hitting 1.7 2-pointers a game and knocking down 1.4 threes while taking just under 7 shots a night. That is elite shot selection. He's not forcing bad looks or jacking up shots just to get his numbers up. He's staying within the offense, taking the right shots and making them at a rate that puts him in some really good company. His points per field goal attempt is sitting at 1.1, and that might not sound like a flashy stat, but it's actually a huge deal. It means he's scoring at a highly efficient rate without wasting possessions. Most players putting up similar scoring numbers need way more shots to get there. Christie is doing it in a way that makes every single possession more valuable for the team. And then there's his free throw attempts. He's getting to the line just over 2 times a game, which might not sound like much, but it actually tells us something really important. He's not just settling for jumpers. He's mixing it up, attacking when he needs to, and showing that his scoring is versatile. Some young shooters fall into the trap of only relying on jump shot. But Christie's showing that he understands how to score in multiple ways. That's a huge sign of growth. These numbers prove he's not just an average scorer. He's scoring at an incredibly high level, shooting better than most players in the league, and doing it all without needing a high number of shots. That's what makes him so valuable. The Mavericks knew they were getting a guy with potential, but even they probably weren't expecting him to be this efficient, this quickly. If he keeps this up, he's going to be a nightmare for defenses every single night. And then we can do the same for his teamwork stats. He's ranking higher than 67% of players in mixed teamwork impact, and that's a big deal. This stat measures how much his presence creates a positive margin for his team compared to other players across the league. In other words, when he's on the floor, good things happen. That's exactly the kind of impact you want from a guy who's still growing into his role but already making a difference. His offensive rating is sitting at 115.9, and that number is huge. Offensive rating measures how many points the team scores per 100 possessions when he's playing. The higher the number, the more productive the team's offense is with him on the court. And 115.9 is a really strong number. It means that when Christie is playing, the Mavericks offense is running smoothly, scoring efficiently, and putting pressure on opposing teams. That's not just about individual scoring, it's about how well the team operates with him in the lineup. Now let's talk about his defense rating. He's sitting at 114.4, which tells us how many points the team allows per 100 possessions when he's on the floor. The key here is that his offensive rating is higher than his defense rating, and that's a great sign. It means that when Christie is playing, the Mavericks are outscoring their opponents overall, which is exactly what you want from a guy in his role. Players who can contribute on both ends while keeping the team's efficiency up are incredibly valuable. And that leads right into his net rating, which is plus 1.5. Net rating is the difference between offensive and defense rating, and a positive number means his presence is leading to more points for the Mavericks than against them. A plus 1.5 may not sound like a massive number, but for a young player still finding his role, it's actually really impressive. It shows that when Christie is out there, the Mavericks are in control more often than not. He's helping the team maintain an edge, and that's exactly what coaches want to see. Then there's his plus-minus percentage. He's finishing with a positive plus-minus in 48.1% of his games, which is a big deal. Plus-minus is a simple but powerful stat. It tells you whether the team is outscoring or getting outscored while a player is on the floor. And for Christie, the fact that he's in the positive nearly half the time is a great sign. It means that in almost half of his games, the Mavericks are playing better basketball when he's on the court. That's not just empty minutes. He's making real contributions that lead to winning plays. And now, let's talk about his on-off number. The Mavericks' point difference when he's on the court versus when he's off is plus 0.3. That may not sound like a huge jump, but it tells a really important story. Even if it's not a massive swing, the fact that the team performs slightly better when he's on the floor is proof that he's a positive contributor. Some players struggle to make any measurable difference, but Christie is already showing that when he plays, the Mavericks improve. And considering he's still getting comfortable in this system, that number has a chance to grow even more as the season goes on. But then we can talk about his ball handling. He ranks higher than 54% of players in ball handling impact, which means he's already above average at controlling the ball and helping the offense flow. That's not just a random stat. It's proof that when he's handling the ball, good things are happening. He's not out there making reckless decisions or overcomplicating things. He's taking care of the ball, playing within the system, and making sure his team gets quality possessions. Let's start with his assist numbers. He's averaging 1.7 assists per game, and while that might not sound like a massive number, it tells us a lot about how he plays. He's not trying to force highlight real passes, but when he makes a play, it leads to points. That's exactly what you want from a player in his role. And when you break it down even further, he's assisting on 4.2 points per game. That's a huge deal because it means he's not just contributing as a scorer, he's also helping create offense for others. Every extra bucket he helps generate makes the Mavericks offense that much more efficient. And when you look at his assist percentage, things get even more interesting. He's at 8.73%, meaning that nearly 9% of all made field goals while he's on the floor come directly from his passes. That puts him ahead of 30% of players in the league. This number is important because it proves that even though he's not the team's primary playmaker, he's still finding ways to contribute as a passer. That's exactly what makes him so valuable. He's not just looking for his own shot, he's keeping the offense balanced and getting his teammates involved. Now let's talk about something that really separates him from a lot of young players: turnovers. Christie is only turning the ball over 1 time per game. That's an incredibly low number, and it shows just how careful and efficient he is with his decision making. Some players might rack up assists, but they also pile up turnovers, which cancels out their positive impact. But Christie, he's keeping his mistakes to a minimum, which makes him a much more reliable option when he has the ball. And his turnover percentage, that's sitting at 9.34%. That means for every 100 actions he takes that conclude a play, whether it's a scoring attempt or a turnover, he's only losing possession a little over 9% of the time. That is a really solid number, and it actually puts him ahead of nearly half the league when it comes to ball security. That's not something you usually see from a young player still finding his role. It means he's playing under control, reading the floor well, and making smart decisions every single time he touches the ball. Now let's break it down even further by looking at his scoring attempts. He's taking just under 8 shots per game while keeping his turnovers low, and that balance is really impressive. A lot of players struggle to find the right mix between being aggressive and playing under control, but Christie is showing that he can do both. He's getting his shots up while still taking care of the ball, and that's exactly the kind of efficiency coaches love to see. Some players need the ball in their hands constantly to be effective, but Christie is proving he can contribute without dominating possessions. He's efficient with his shot selection, careful with his passes, and smart with his decisions. That's a rare combination, especially for someone his age, and the fact that he's already finding ways to impact the game while limiting mistakes makes him even more valuable to this Mavericks team. And I also want to look at his usage numbers. Back in Los Angeles, he had a usage rate of just 15%, meaning only 15% of the team's offensive plays ended with him either taking a shot, getting to the free throw line, recording an assist, or turning the ball over. That number put him ahead of 30% of players in the league, but let's be real, it was way too low for a player with his skill set. And the reason for that? He was playing alongside LeBron James, one of the most ball-dominant players in NBA history. It's not easy to carve out a big offensive role when you're sharing the floor with a guy who controls almost every possession. That limited role showed up in his numbers. He was averaging just 6.9 shot attempts per game, which isn't bad, but it also doesn't reflect how efficient of a scorer he actually is. A player shooting at his level should have been taking more shots, but there were only so many touches available. Then there's his free throw attempts, just 2.1 per game. That tells us he wasn't being put in many situations where he could attack and draw fouls. Instead, he was mostly operating as a spot-up shooter or a secondary option, taking what the defense gave him rather than being given the freedom to create his own offense. And when you look at his assist numbers, it becomes even clearer. He averaged 1.7 assists per game, which isn't bad, but it also shows that he wasn't in a role where he was expected to make plays for others. The Lakers weren't running offense through him. They had other priorities, and Christie's job was mostly to fit in, not stand out. That's why his turnover numbers were so low, just 1 per game. He wasn't taking a lot of risks because he wasn't being asked to do much with the ball. His job was to play within the system, make the simple plays, and not try to do too much. And then there's his possessions played, 52.8 per game. That might sound like a decent number, but when you pair it with his low usage rate, it shows just how much of his time on the floor was spent without the ball in his hands. He wasn't a focal point. He was a role player, waiting for opportunities, rather than creating them. But now that he's in Dallas, that's all changing. The Mavericks are giving him the kind of opportunities he never got in Los Angeles. His usage rate is already climbing because he's getting more touches, more shot attempts, and more chances to show what he can do. That 15% usage rate, that's not going to last much longer. His role is expanding, and with that, his numbers are going to take a serious jump. His shot attempts are already going up, which means he's being given the freedom to be more aggressive. He's not just waiting for catch and shoot looks. He's being trusted to find his own offense. And his free throw attempts, that number should climb too. The more he attacks, the more he's going to draw contact, and that's only going to make him more dangerous. And then there's his playmaking. Back with the Lakers, he wasn't expected to create for others. His job was to stay in his lane and let the stars handle the offense. But in Dallas, he's getting more ball handling responsibilities, and that means his assist numbers are going to start rising. He's already shown he can take care of the ball, so giving him more playmaking duties isn't going to lead to a bunch of unnecessary turnovers. If anything, it's going to make him even more effective because he'll be involved in so many different ways. This is the biggest difference between his time in Los Angeles and what's happening now. These old usage stats don't reflect his real ability. They only reflect the role he was stuck in. But now, He's in a system that actually values what he brings to the table. He's getting more touches, more responsibility, and more trust. And as he continues to get more comfortable in this new role, his numbers are only going to get better. This is just the beginning. And if his usage rate keeps trending in this direction, he's about to take a massive leap. But then I want to check out these numbers. His true shooting percentage is sitting at 59%, which already puts him ahead of 72% of players in the league. That's not just solid, it's elite. True shooting takes everything into account: field goals, three-pointers, and free throws, giving the best possible picture of how efficiently a player is actually converting scoring opportunities. And Christie, he's doing it at a level that most players in the NBA can't match. A 59% true shooting percentage means that every possession where he takes a shot is one where the Mavericks are getting real value. He's not just throwing up inefficient looks, he's maximizing every attempt. That's exactly what you want from a young player who's finding his rhythm in an expanded role. The Mavericks don't need him to take a massive number of shots. They need him to take the right shots, and that's exactly what he's doing. Then there's his shot quality, sitting at 68.4. That number puts him in the 77th percentile, meaning he's taking better quality shots than over 3/4 of the league. That is a huge deal. Shot quality isn't just about efficiency, it's about decision making. It shows that Christie isn't settling for bad looks. He's finding high percentage shots, and he's consistently putting himself in the best position to score. Some players force up tough shots and rely on difficult makes to keep their efficiency up, but Christie is playing smart basketball. He knows when to take his shot, when to move the ball, and when to attack the rim. That kind of awareness is rare for a player his age, and it's one of the biggest reasons he's been so efficient. He's not just relying on talent, he's making sure that every shot he takes is a good one. And when we talk about efficiency, we have to look at his free throw rate. He's at 27.7%, meaning he gets to the line on more than a quarter of his shot attempts. That number puts him in the 70th percentile, meaning he's better than 70% of players in this category. That is a massive stat because it shows that he's not just settling for jump shots. He's attacking, drawing contact, and getting to the free throw line. A lot of young shooters make the mistake of relying too much on their jump shot. They fall in love with taking threes and never develop the ability to get to the rim. But Christie, he's proving that he understands how to mix things up. When defenses close out on him, he's not just jacking up a contested three, he's driving, drawing contact, and making the most of every possession. That's a sign of maturity in his game, and it's only going to make him harder to guard as he keeps developing. And speaking of three-pointers, let's talk about his three-point attempt rate. He's at 53%, meaning more than half of his shots are coming from beyond the arc. That puts him in the 73rd percentile, meaning he's shooting threes at a rate higher than almost 3/4 of the league. That's a major sign of confidence in his shooting ability. Not only is he taking a high volume of threes, but he's doing it efficiently. Some players put up a lot of three-pointers just for the sake of it, but Christie is taking good shots, and that's why his efficiency is so high. His ability to shoot at this volume means defenses have no choice but to respect his range. That alone makes him incredibly valuable. When he's on the floor, defenders can't sag off him. They have to stay attached to him at all times. That spacing alone makes the Mavericks offense flow so much better. And because he's shooting so many threes, it makes his ability to get to the free throw line even more important. Defenders have to close out hard on him, and that opens up opportunities for him to attack the rim. That's why his free throw rate is such a big deal. He's not just a one-dimensional shooter. He's a complete offensive threat. All of these numbers point to one thing. Christie is becoming one of the most efficient young scorers in the league. He's not just putting up points. He's doing it in a way that maximizes every possession. His true shooting percentage is elite. His shot quality is among the best in the league. His free throw rate is climbing, and his three-point attempt rate is proving that he's a legitimate deep threat. These aren't empty numbers. These are the kinds of stats that show a player who is built for long-term success. He's playing smart, he's playing efficiently, and he's proving that he's ready to take on a bigger role. The Mavericks have to be thrilled with what they're seeing, because Christie is showing that he can be a major contributor without needing a massive number of touches. That's what makes him so valuable. And then I have some numbers for the other side of the ball. Let's start with his defensive rebound. He's averaging 0.6 defensive rebounds per game, and that number might not jump off the page, but it actually puts him in the 70th percentile. That means he's rebounding better than 70% of the league, which is really impressive for a player in his role. Christie isn't a center or a big forward, so his job isn't necessarily to dominate the glass, but the fact that he's grabbing defensive boards at this rate shows that he's engaged, active, and helping the team in ways beyond just scoring. He's not just relying on the big men to clean up missed shots. He's doing his part to end possessions and get the Mavericks going in transition. Now let's talk about rim protection, which is a really underrated part of his game. His rim defense impact is sitting at negative 2.8, which puts him in the 63rd percentile. That might not sound like a huge number, but it actually means he's contesting shots at the rim at a better rate than over 60% of the league. That's a huge deal, because it shows that he's not just letting opponents get easy layups when they attack the paint. He's stepping in, challenging shots, and making sure that nothing comes easy for the opposition. And when we talk about rim protection, we have to mention rim frequency. Christie is contesting shots at the rim on 37.4% of defensive possessions, putting him in the 59th percentile. That means he's actively involved in altering shots when players drive inside. He might not be a dominant shot blocker, but he's still making sure that opponents don't get easy finishes around the basket. That's an important part of team defense, being able to help inside without completely leaving your man open on the perimeter. Now, let's talk about blocks. His block percentage is sitting at 1.7%, which puts him in the 56th percentile. Again, that might not sound like a game-changing number, but it actually shows that he's blocking more shots than over half the league. He's using his length and instincts to get stops, which is exactly what you want from a wing defender. He's not just relying on his offense to make an impact. He's proving that he can disrupt plays and protect the rim when needed. One of the most interesting numbers in his defensive profile is his versatility rating. He's at 31, which puts him in the 42nd percentile. That number measures how many different positions a player can guard effectively. And while Christie isn't at the elite level yet, he's showing signs of being able to hold his own against multiple matchups. He's not someone who can switch onto every single position, but he's still proving that he can guard a variety of players without getting exposed. That's a great sign for his long-term development, because the more he improves his versatility, the more valuable he'll become as a defender. Now let's talk about something that really separates him from a lot of other young defenders: his discipline. His relative personal fouls per game are sitting at negative 0.6, which means he's committing fewer fouls than 81% of players in the league. That's massive. A lot of young defenders struggle with foul trouble because they're too aggressive or they don't have the experience to stay in control. But Christie is showing that he knows how to defend without getting baited into cheap fouls. He's staying disciplined, playing smart, and making sure that he's not giving opponents easy trips to the free throw line. That's a huge asset for a team that needs reliable defenders who won't hurt them with unnecessary fouls. And finally, we have his overall defensive impact metric, crafted DPM. He's at negative 0.1, which puts him in the 47th percentile, right around league average. That might not seem like a standout stat, but for a young player still developing on that end of the floor, it's actually a great sign. He's not getting exposed, he's not a liability, and he's proving that he can hold his own on defense. What makes these numbers so exciting is that they show a player who is still growing and improving. He's already rebounding at a strong rate for his position, contesting shots at the rim, blocking a respectable number of attempts, staying out of foul trouble, and proving that he can be a reliable defender in different matchups. He's not just standing around on defense. He's actively making plays, challenging shots, and doing all the little things that contribute to winning basketball. The Mavericks have to be thrilled with what they're seeing from him, because they didn't just trade for a shooter. They traded for a player who is capable of making an impact on both ends of the floor. Christie is proving that he's not just a one-dimensional scorer, but a complete player who is finding ways to help his team win. All of these numbers paint a clear picture. Christie is an active, disciplined defender who is making a positive impact without making costly mistakes. He's rebounding better than most players at his position, contesting shots at the rim, blocking shots at a solid rate, staying out of foul trouble, and proving that he can hold his own in different defensive matchups. He might not be an elite defender just yet, but he's already doing a lot of things well. And as he continues to develop, these numbers are only going to get better. What's even more exciting is that he's still getting used to his new role in Dallas. These defensive numbers were already trending in the right direction before he got more minutes. But now that the Mavericks are trusting him with more responsibility, his impact is only going to grow. The more comfortable he gets, the more these numbers are going to improve, and the more valuable he's going to become as a complete two-way player. Overall though, Max Christie is only 22 years old, and that is what makes all of this even more exciting. A player this young, stepping into a bigger role and immediately showing that he belongs, is not something that happens often. The Mavericks saw something in him when they traded for him, and now they are giving him the opportunity to prove what he can do. And so far, he's done nothing but deliver. His efficiency his growing confidence, and his ability to contribute on both ends of the floor are all signs that he is just scratching the surface of what he can become. This is not a case of a player having a hot stretch. This is a young player getting a bigger role and showing that he is more than ready for it. What makes it even better is the situation he is in. Playing next to Irving is one of the best possible opportunities for him because it allows him to develop without having to carry too much of the offensive load. Irving is one of the most skilled scorers and playmakers in the league, and having a player like that next to him means that Christie is always going to get good looks. Defenses have to focus so much attention on Irving that it naturally creates open opportunities for other players, and Christie is the perfect type of player to take advantage of those situations. He can knock down shots, he can attack when defenders close out too hard, and he can make smart plays without forcing anything. That is the ideal role for a young, efficient scorer who is still developing his game. And then there is the defense. Dallas already has one of the most well-rounded defensive rosters in the league, and adding Christie to that mix only makes them more dangerous. Derek Lively is proving to be one of the best young rim protectors in the NBA. Daniel Gafford is an elite shot blocker and rebounder. PJ Washington is a versatile defender who can guard multiple positions. And Dante Exum is a strong perimeter defender who can take on tough assignments. That is a lot of defensive talent on one team. And the best part is that all of these players complement each other really well. Christie does not have to be an elite defender right now because he is surrounded by so many good ones. But what he does bring is energy, effort, and discipline. All things that make a difference in winning basketball. And the most important factor, Anthony Davis. When he comes back healthy, the Mavericks are going to take another huge step forward. Davis is one of the best defenders in the entire league, and his presence completely changes everything on both ends of the floor. He can anchor the defense, protect the rim at an elite level, and switch on to just about anyone. That means Christie is going to have even more freedom to focus on what he does best, whether it is spacing the floor, making smart cuts, or using his efficiency to maximize his scoring opportunities. Having Davis back is not just going to help the Mavericks as a team, it is going to help Christie as an individual because he will be playing in an even more structured and balanced system. The timing of all this could not be better for Christie. He is stepping into a larger role at exactly the right time. He is no longer stuck in a system where he has to take a back seat to establish superstars without getting a chance to show what he can do. He is now in a situation where he is being trusted, where he is being given real responsibility, and where he is proving that he can make a legitimate impact. That is the kind of opportunity that can change the trajectory of a player's career. And the best part, he is only going to keep getting better. He is just 22 years old, and he is already playing with this level of efficiency, composure, and confidence. Players at this age usually go through a lot of ups and downs, but Christie has stepped into this new role and immediately looked like he belongs. That is not normal. That is what makes him such an exciting player to watch. He is showing that he is ahead of schedule in his development, and he is proving that he can be a key piece for this Mavericks team moving forward. This is what makes the Mavericks such a dangerous team right now. They are already playing great basketball, and they have a roster that is built for both the present and the future. They have high-level scorers, elite defenders, and young players who are growing into their roles. Christie fits perfectly into that mix because he is a player who can contribute right now while also continuing to develop into an even bigger role. He is a piece that makes sense both for the short term and the long term, and that is what makes this such a great situation for him. The best part about Christie's game is that he does not have to change anything. He just has to keep doing what he is already doing. He does not need to force shots. He does not need to try to do too much, and he does not need to play outside of himself. The Mavericks are putting him in a position where he can maximize his strengths, and that is why he is thriving. He is playing with elite efficiency, making smart decisions, contributing on both ends, and proving that he belongs in this rotation. And when Davis returns, that is when things are really going to take off. This team is already showing that they can compete at a high level, but adding a player like Davis to the mix takes them to a completely different level. His presence on defense is going to make life easier for everyone, and his ability to dominate inside is going to create even more space for players like Christie to shine. This is why the Mavericks have been so exciting to watch. They have a balanced roster, they have a great mix of young talent and veteran leadership, and they are giving players like Christie the opportunity to grow into their roles naturally. At just 22 years old, Christie is in a position that most young players would love to be in. He is playing meaningful minutes for a contending team. He is learning from some of the best players in the league, and he is proving that he can handle the responsibility of a larger role. That is not something that happens often, and it is exactly why his future is so exciting. The Mavericks made a smart move bringing him in because they saw something that the Lakers clearly overlooked. They saw a player who just needed an opportunity, and now that he has that opportunity, he is showing that he is more than ready for it. He is playing at a high level, fitting in perfectly with the team structure, and making an impact in every single game. That is the kind of player who becomes a key piece of a championship caliber team. If he is playing this well now, just imagine what he is going to look like a year from now or 2 years from now. He is already one of the most efficient young scorers in the league. He is improving as a defender, and he is proving that he can be trusted in big moments. That is the kind of player you build around. The Mavericks are giving him the perfect environment to develop, and if he keeps trending in this direction, he is going to be a major factor in their success for years to come. At the end of the day, the most exciting thing about Christie is that this is just the beginning. He is 22, he is growing into his role, and he is only going to keep getting better. With Irving setting him up, with elite defenders like Lively, Gafford, Washington, and Exum around him, and with Anthony Davis coming back to anchor the defense, this Mavericks team is about to reach another level. And Christie, he is going to be a huge part of that success.